Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at a 12.8 volt 165 amp hour battery from LiTime. So let's go ahead and open it up and see what's inside. When you first open the battery, you are going to see your product manual right here. And I do like how the manual is specific to the 165 amp hour battery. And it says it has 165 amp BMS. That's odd. I usually see 100 amp or 200 amp, maybe 150, but not something so specific to the size of the amp hour of the battery. And then you also have your quick start guide. We have a set of post bolts and post bolt covers along with extra washers. And I do like how LiTime packages. They always have very thick foam on their packaging to protect the battery. All right, and then we have the battery. All right, the first thing I really want to get across is right here. This is actually the LiTime 12.8 volt 100 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery. Now let's compare it to the 165 amp hour 12 volt battery. Look at that. The 165 amp hour battery is a group 31 as well. So the sizes are exactly the same. Same measurements as the group 31 100 amp hour battery, because group 31 means the size of the case. I'll go ahead and put the dimensions right down here just so you know. But let's go ahead and compare the weight. That's what's going to be different. Here's our LiTime 12.8 volt 100 amp hour battery. And it is 21.9 pounds. And here is the LiTime 165 amp hour battery. It only weighs 11 pounds more. It's 32.5 pounds. So it's really no wonder why this is one of their best-selling batteries, because you have the group 31 casing and it only weighs 11 pounds more, but you're getting 65 more amp hours. But let's go ahead and put it through its paces just to make sure that it's actually a really good value and it works well. So just like with every other 12.8 volt lithium iron phosphate battery, go ahead and test the terminals for voltage to see what they shipped it at. Now this is a smart battery, so there is a chance you'll have to wake it up. But let's go ahead and try that now. All right, and the voltage is 12.9. That is actually a little bit lower than I was expecting. So what does that mean when it comes to actual state of charge? Well, the good thing is that this is Bluetooth compatible. So we'll go ahead and load up the app and connect to this battery, and we'll see exactly what the state of charge is. All right, so I loaded up the app. I went ahead and scanned the QR code on the top of the battery to load it into the app. And here is what I have. As you can see, the state of charge is actually 22%, which is lower than I would have expected. Usually they ship these between 30 and 50%, but 22% still it's no problem whatsoever. Let's go ahead and look at the app a little bit more while we're here. You can see that the battery is at 13 volts. The capacity currently is 36.3 amp hours. It shows zero current and zero power because we're not actually using the battery. We're not charging it or discharging it at the moment. If you hit balance, it shows that this guy's super happy and he's saying that it is balanced. The cells, they say that it's normal, and the BMS, it does say that it's normal. Those will change if there's an issue, but it won't give you specific information on those items. In the info at the bottom, you can see that the temperature is 17 degrees Celsius. It's been cycled 0 times, and firmware version is 1.0.0. And that's really all there is with the app. In this app, it doesn't show you the individual cell voltages. It doesn't really give you any detailed information. It basically just gives you the basics of what you need to know about your battery and at what charge it's at. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do with this battery is I'm going to go ahead and charge it up all the way just using a 20 amp lithium iron phosphate charger. And then I'll do a capacity test to make sure we're getting at least 165 amp hours out of this battery. Once I'm done with that, we'll continue with the testing. All right, well, the capacity test is done for the LiTime 165 amp hour 12 volt battery. So let's go ahead and look at the results. All right, you can see that the blue line is the voltage, and at the first 5%, we are looking at 12.87 volts, which is a little low in my opinion. But the thing about these LiTime batteries is look at the 95th percentile. It is still at 12.1, so you're only talking a 0.7 volt difference between the first 5% and the last 5%. So that is very nice. That's a nice, stable voltage curve, and that's what you want to see. When it comes to the capacity of the battery, we are looking at 170.37 amp hours. So that is pretty good. That's about 3% higher than what the rated capacity is, I believe. Something around those numbers. So as long as it's over 165, I'm fine with that. All right, so let's go ahead and do some high amperage testing to see if this battery has high amperage protection. All right, I got the battery all set up for my high amperage testing, so let me show you what's going on. All right, well, here is the LiTime 165 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery, and we do have a voltmeter right here which shows 13.26 and an amp clamp which currently shows about 1 to 2 amps because it's powering this 3000 watt pure sine wave inverter right here. We also have our timer or our watch because we're going to do a first soak test for 5 minutes to make sure that there aren't any issues with it powering probably around 150 to 155 amps. This battery does say that it can handle 165 amps, but that's as close as I could get for this initial test. Because what we're going to do is we're going to be powering that heat gun, which is 1200 watts, and this little heater right here, which is 500 watts. So 1700 watts in total. And that should, again, give us about 150 amps. After 5 minutes, I'm going to start stepping up the wattage by replacing that little heater with something that's going to power around 1000 watts, and we'll see what happens. And then we'll boost it up again to 1500 watts just to see if it can handle it and when it does shut down. So let's begin. Let's start our clock and turn on this fan and the heater. All right, the fans on the inverter just clicked on. Our amperage is right around 160 amps, but it probably will drop a little bit once the heater kind of soaks in. So there you see a little bit of a drop. The voltage is 12.5, which is very respectable. And it looks like we're holding steady at about 155 to 160 amps. So I'll be back in about 5 minutes to show you the results. All right, well, it's been about 5 minutes and 40 seconds, as you can see, and it is handling this 161 amps now just fine. Our voltage is down to 12.44, so it's lost a little less than 1/10 of a volt. So let me go ahead and put the app on the screen so I can kind of show you that as well. And on the app, it does show that it's 12.6 volts. The current is 160 amps. And that means that our power is right around 2000 watts because of the inefficiencies of the inverter and what we're powering. So let's go ahead and swap out that 500 watt heater with a 1000 watt Elite Gourmet and see what happens. As you can see on the app, I just turned the heater off, so the power went down. The current's now 110. Plugging in the Elite Gourmet. And let's crank that up. All right. You can see now that we are doing 203 amps. And it turned off. That is exactly what you want your battery to do. You want it to go up to its rated capacity, but once it goes over like 50%, you want that thing to shut off. So, and that's exactly what this LiTime did. So that is what I like to see. And we can see on the app that it shows that the BMS is yellow. And if we click on it, it does say under protection, discharging over current protection. And you can just say, got it. and it looks like it turned it back on. Our voltage is back up to 13.15, and it's back to powering that load. So that is perfect. So let's go ahead and crack open this LiTime battery to see how well the build quality is. All right, here we go. All right, well, I've tried and tried, but I cannot get this battery pack out of this case without completely destroying the case, so I don't really want to do that. But let me just show you from what I can see how well this build quality is. First of all, you have on the negative, you have 4 8-gauge wires. The positive is covered by this like a fire resistant sheathing right here. And I believe that the positive is maybe 2 6-gauge wires. I do like the fact that every screw that you see has glue on it. So everything is glued and screwed. Even the terminal, like they have them covered up and they're glued and screwed on. I do like the fact that they have these covered up as well on the inside. It's just an added layer of protection. If you look down onto the bus bars of the battery, you can see that the balance leads are screwed on and they're glued. And there is a hump in the bus bar for expansion and contraction. This battery is in here nice and tight with this high density foam everywhere. I do see some strapping along the cells right here to keep everything nice and tight. And they do have this like fiber, it's not really fiberboard, but it's some sort of I don't know, fiber plastic surrounding the cells on the top. There is a nice thick pad separating the BMS from the cells, so they're not just sitting right on top of the cells there. It looks like these negatives are soldered on down there. You can see the solder connections, and the soldering looks very clean. So all in all, I would say this is a very nice build quality, which is a standard for LiTime. And since I can't get to the temperature probe, I'm gonna go ahead and just throw this thing in my freezer, and we'll come back tomorrow just to make sure that the cold temperature charging protection works. All right, well, I just pulled this LiTime 165 amp hour 12 volt lithium iron phosphate battery out of my freezer. And if you look at the app, you scroll down, you see that the temperature says -8 degrees Celsius. So it should be well below the 32 degree Fahrenheit or 0 degrees Celsius threshold for the BMS to shut off due to cold temperature charging protection. So I have my LiTime charger right here, and it's blinking green, which means it's on standby. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and connect these up, and what will happen is it should go to a solid red for just a couple seconds, and then it will go to a solid green, basically saying that the battery told the charger to shut off. So let's go ahead and do it now. And we'll watch the app to see if anything happens. Solid red. And a solid green. That's exactly what we wanted to see. And the app shows that the BMS is on some sort of alert. We'll press on the button, and it does say under protection, and it shows a check mark next to low temp protection. So it works perfect. All right, well, I gotta say that this LiTime 165 amp 12.8 volt lithium iron phosphate battery did not disappoint once again. These LiTime batteries, they have great build quality. They pass all the tests that I throw at them, and they're a budget battery. So I wish I could say something bad about it. I mean, the app, you know, it doesn't show individual cell voltages, but for the layman DIY wanting the battery to back up his small refrigerator or something, you don't need that. All you want to know is that the battery is going to work when you want it to, and it's going to protect itself in case something goes wrong. So let me know if you have any questions about this battery or how I provide my tests. Go ahead and leave them in the comments. I'll have a link to this item in my description just in case you want to look further into it. Thank you so much for watching this video and have a great day. Bye-bye.